legends. Just wanted to do a bit of an update. It's been a little while. Update on the 2JZ S15 build and the I guess the quest for 10 seconds. Alrighty, so where I left off last time, and I was sitting in the same seat, it was a couple of videos ago, and it was me sort of breaking down all the progress I was starting to get by doing different sort of strategies and implementing different things, i.e. putting sandbags into the boot, doing the camber changes on the rear, settings on the suspension, restricting some of the RPM on launch and stuff like that. And I think I was starting around the 5.5 seconds for 0 to 100, got down to about 4.5 seconds. And then the 60 foot, which is pretty much all the first gear, was around 2.5 seconds, and it might have gotten down to about 2.10 seconds at its best, only just, you know what I mean? So that was pretty good results and good to see some good progress there and stuff. But then I decided I wanted more power, didn't I? So I put a set of camshafts in there and went back to the dyno, and I've got the dyno sheets here. Before, when I was launching off, or the power figures I had before when I was getting that progress, I was launching at the low power of 460 horsepower, which isn't too bad. And I had a max power that I could select of 523 horsepower. So there's the dyno results there. So I guess all we really need to know is I was launching at 460 horsepower. The new figures are, and I do have a video on this, but the new figures are, the lowest I can run is 562 horsepower. So that's another 100 horsepower on top of that. And the max is 655. But I'm not really using that until I get into about third or fourth gear anyway. So what I'm launching off, or was launching off now, is 100 horsepower or more. Now that doesn't work, does it? When you're trying to get as much grip as you can, you're restricting RPM anyway, and you're struggling with grip. Adding another 100 horsepower, more power doesn't make a faster car, especially in this car. Now, just bear in mind, it's rear-wheel drive, lightweight, it's a manual, it's not an auto, like a 3-speed auto or something like that. And we've got pretty good Mickey Thompson tires, but they're not the best of the best. If you go down to 15s, it might be a little bit easier. So, what happened was, all of that progress went out the window, didn't it? Damn it. So I've been trying to reel that back in the last month or two. And I guess it does show, because on my draggy, or my launching, my 0 to 100s, I've done over 90 of them. So I've definitely been at work trying to refine everything here, and I guess that's what I want to go over now. So considering I can't lower my boost anymore, so low boost is at, what is it at? Well, I know what it's at 1 bar. So boost controller turned off, 1 bar, because that's the wastegate springs. We're at 560 horsepower. So what was happening, I was just lighting up the wheels and it just wasn't happening. And before, what I used to do was just have a speed referenced RPM restriction all the way through, just kind of like a kind of like a 2-step, but all the way through the first gear of the RPM. And what happens with that is, yes, it does restrict your RPM climb, but it's really rugged and it's not smooth, and it doesn't really help. It did help to reduce some of the power before, but I didn't like that concept. So what I did is I got rid of that, kept the launch control, and now I have started using e-throttle. So I've got a drive-by-wire set up on this, and at this point, at about in first gear when I launch off, as soon as I go over a certain speed, like 5 kilometers, a new I guess, throttle control map comes into play. And I restrict all of my throttle down to 32% from 4,000 RPM. It's at 32%, even though I'm putting my pedal all the way to the floor. So to manage this power in this car, the way I've got it set up, I reduce my 560 horsepower. It probably drops down to about 450 horsepower, because I've seen other like Haltech videos of them doing the same technique. And instead of me running 14.5 PSI now, it drops down to about 7.5 PSI across the whole of first gear. So I'm able to manage the wheel spin much better. So I'll go into more detail on that on the laptop, and I'll show you just sort of how I configure that. But the concept is, I've got a drive-by-wire, I've got my accelerator pedal 100% down in first gear when I launch off, but as soon as the wheels grip up, at 4,000 RPM, the throttle plate closes to 32% all the way across the rev range, and it drops my PSI that I can't normally drop down with an electronic boost controller because it's the wastegate spring. I can go down further on that because I'm not opening the throttle body right up. So that's a pretty cool technique, and I really like that. The other way around this is people use like CO2, and they put pressure on top of the external wastegate. You can do that, but you can also do this too. So I will be buying the electronic external wastegate from TurboSmart to get over all of this. But at this point in time, it's really awesome with the drive-by-wire feature, is you can restrict power and keep the pedal to the metal, man, the whole entire time. So that's awesome. That's really good. Okay, the next thing that I did do on the settings of this car is I had a look at the rear camber. Because what I'd done previously is I'd set it to just shy of directly up, so 0 degrees. So it was slightly negative cambered, but like bugger all, you know what I mean? So I did go on a bit of a quest and put the feelers out to try and figure out, is there any way to counter the reaction of the car squatting down and the IRS suspension system cambering in when she squats down, and there is no real way to sort of get rid of those effects. So that's dynamic, not static. Static's just where it's sitting there and there's no weight on it whatsoever. And then when you launch down, boom, you get dynamic camber effects, which sucks for traction because you lose tire patch. And that's the whole concept there. So learned a hell of a lot about the rear suspension setups and all the linkages and stuff like that in the back of like the Nissans and the Japanese cars and everything, the IRS suspension, independent rear suspension. It is completely different, completely opposite the way that it reacts to like live axles or 4-link axle systems that you might get in like Mustangs and old school sort of muscle cars and all that type of stuff. They're actually really, really, really good for launching off the line, those cars, where these aren't. But where these benefit is when you want to go fast around corner and you do have that squat, it actually really does help for handling. And the other setup, the Mustangs and everything, when they're going around corners, they don't have very good handling. So it's just like, what do you do? Anyway, how you counter that is quite a primitive way. You literally just put positive static camber in. It seems a bit weird, but that is what you do. And you just got to be a little bit careful when you're going around corners, especially with the Mickey Thompsons only on 18 PSI of pressure. That's another thing I was going to mention. Tire pressure is always at 18 PSI, plus I've got positive. So going around corners, you just want to be a little bit careful and stuff like that. It's not like you drive these types of cars in the rain. But it really does help. So what I found that really helped with me is, especially in second gear and in third gear now. In third gear, I can run my full power. Before I couldn't do that. So I can run 655 horsepower through this car with really good sort of like torque characteristics coming on pretty hard. And it doesn't lose traction in third gear. It's really awesome in this. So also what I am looking at doing now is I'm adjusting, because in first and second gear I launch on the lowest power. First gear, like I said, I restrict it down to 32%. in second gear, I was having to restrict it at the start, but now I don't need to. Now I actually want to put more boost in because I've got all my settings dialed in nicely, that I have really good grip in second gear. So it could do with a little bit more boost, but I can't run my medium boost, which is 610 horsepower. So what I'm doing is there's a setting or parameter in the Link G4 software, and they'll be the same with like Motec and all the big brands and everything like that. But I can do a gear-based wastegate boost trim type sort of scenario. And what that does is pretty much it just means it knows which gear it's in. So in second gear, I can just add a little bit of wastegate trim to the wastegate table, and it will just add a little bit more boost every single time. How far I want to go is up to me. But I can just add maybe a couple of PSI there. Instead of going like 5 or 6 PSI like my medium boost would be, I can literally just go up maybe 1 or 2 PSI, just to add a tad bit more power in there and just refine that and get that really good second gear acceleration. So hopefully some of this stuff helps. And I guess it just shows you what some people don't necessarily have to go into this depth, but I love going into this technical depth of how to sort of like use all of the features of the electronic features that we've got, and really sort of look at all the logging, the wheel speeds and everything like that, how much slip we're getting, and you can really dial in these days. It's so beautiful. Your settings and your boost pressures and your power outputs and stuff like that. So that's super duper. Okay, so one of the last mods I've done up to date is I've put in another 20 kilos of sandbags into the boot. So there's a total of 80 kilos. So that's pretty good. So I ride around all the time with 80 kilos in the back. I notice as soon as I take it out, I don't have that much traction, especially in like second and third gear and everything. So not too sure what I'm going to do about that because I'm so used to having that weight in the boot. Anyway, 18 PSI, tire pressure, positive, static camber, all stays the same all the time. It doesn't faze me too much. I have really good tire wear, very centered, right out to the edges as well. So I'll do a little sneaky peek on the tire wear on them, and maybe someone can let me know. I guess the simple way of finding out is when your Mickey Thompsons are out of grip is when they start losing grip, right? But they look like slicks, you know, so I don't know how far that they can actually go down. So maybe someone can let me know, or whether it's just when you stop getting the times that you want to get drastically, then you got to get some new ones. So yeah, hope you like, team. That's just a bit of an update.